very important on food security and nutritious foods in Eeyou Istchee. It's very appropriate for us as a young indigenous nation to be constantly expanding the scope, those areas of our daily lives that we have taken responsible for, to expand the scope of our governance and the scope of our jurisdiction so that we can deal with these issues effectively. We know that issues around food are ultimately our own responsibility. And because in the end, since it really is our responsibility, we cannot and we should not consider these issues as something that we expect anyone else to do for us. As we are decolonizing all aspects of our lives, personally and on our community level and on the Cree Nation level, and taking more control of our own fate and our own future in more and more areas, we must also decolonize the way we think about things. We're no longer in a state of dependency on governments, and we have been learning to act in accordance with that reality. We're continuing our journey in which we ourselves are seizing responsibility. We ourselves are devising the solutions to the challenges before us, and we are ourselves are assuming the accountability to our own people. We are no longer looking to governments, but instead we're looking inward to ourselves, to our own creativity, and to our own wisdom to address the critical issues before us. The ways in which we have dealt with COVID-19 pandemic is a very eloquent testimony of our ability to address our own issues and our own problems, utilizing our own resources and our own institutions. We realized that the measures and practices which are the reality throughout the rest of Quebec and Canada do not necessarily work for us in Eeyou Istchee. Our living conditions are different, our culture and social practices are different, and our geography is different. Geography is different. The response to the COVID pandemic required us to come up with a very own different set of laws, precautionary measures and recommendations. And by all accounts, we've been extremely successful. In a similar way, the foods available to Cree consumers in our communities are no guarantee that the specific circumstances of our people and our need for highly quality nutritious foods are being met by what is currently available in stores in our communities or in stores available to us in the nearby non-Indigenous community towns. Just because they're available to us does not mean that they are good for us. We know very well, for example, that there is a clear correlation between the reliance on unhealthy store-bought foods in our communities with the prevalence of diabetes. Clearly, what may work for people in the South will not necessarily work in Eeyou Istchee. Those unhealthy store-bought foods, heavy in empty carbohydrates and excessive sugar, just do not provide us with the nutrition that our genetic makeup has prepared for us. We know, and we've known for a long time, that a diet more heavily reliant on our traditional foods while limiting unhealthy store-bought food is healthier for us. So who will address this reality if we do not do it ourselves? If diabetes continues to be the serious epidemic it has been shown to be, we ourselves must take this on. We ourselves must act. We ourselves must find the solutions that work for our people. We must become the pioneers of our own health, and the supply of healthy food will be the key to our success. The strategies and the plans that you will be developing over the course of the next few days and weeks will need to be guided by a commitment to put in place the most appropriate measure to ensure our own health. This plan will obviously need to include an initiative that will result in the gradual replacement of our local store of nutritionally empty food products with those products that are healthy for our people, based on our own genetic makeup and which work economically and which involve our own people and our culture. This must be a comprehensive strategy which addresses our health needs, economic initiatives, such as commercialization of traditional foods and support for local and regional plants that reflect and support the strategy. Of course, at the same time, we need to always remain mindful of the need to harvest traditional foods, including fish, moose, caribou, bear, geese, and other animals, in a way that is responsible, so as to ensure that the continued availability of these foods, and in a way that is in keeping with our traditional approaches to conservation. In solving the problems of today, we must always remain mindful of the needs of our future generations. The way in which we addressed the COVID pandemic can provide us all, in whatever areas we work in Cree Nation, with a general approach or a template for how we can address all the major issues that we face as a nation, as communities, and as individuals. We addressed the COVID-19 pandemic with a reliance on our own expertise, a reliance on our own institutions, and a strong reliance on communication with our communities and local leadership, and constant review of the results of our various measures. If specific undertakings are working, we used to build up upon those. If some initiatives were not working so well, we modified our course of action until we found the path to success. We engaged our regional entities to work closely with our communities, and through constant communication, we engaged with all our people in Eeyou Istchee. We succeeded in dealing with the pandemic because of our unity and because we did it ourselves, and we did it Giano together. So please let the success of our addressing the pressing and serious crisis that we have just come through guide us as we continue to introduce effective and innovative ways of improving and protecting the health of our people. Negode, migachi.
It's come then, Grand Chief. Just to let you know, I think Nadia is working on a workshop training program for gardeners.
Yeah, sign me up once you have it.
Okay, so this is Miyūmīchisutāu. So this is day one. We have 4 days to work on coming up with some kind of solution scale. Just to give you a little, so one is access to nutritious food. Day two is access to traditional food, access to healthy store-bought food, meaning and producing locally foods. So I think those are the things that we're looking at. I just wanted to touch base a little on what the Grand Chief in regards to decolonization and working together. I think it's really important. Yeah, we are trying to find solutions, and it's at the community level that we're trying to work from, and I think this is why we have this engagement session to really address all these things. Like the emphasis of working together, because in diabetes and the chronic diseases have such a huge impact on our communities, especially the lives of our STEAM and all the communities. So but there's going to be a training program somewhere down the road. I don't know. We're still negotiating it. Okay. This is the PowerPoint. Are we using that? I thought. Okay, Amanda. I'm just going to talk a little bit about Amanda. Amanda worked with the Istchee up north on food security or food sovereignty. So she was a facilitator there, and that's why we retained her, because the success there was really how she brought it about in terms of food security and how they were able to work together. So there was a few people from the Cree Health Board that participated on that. So that's how we learned of her. So just wanted to let you know on that. So she's a facilitator. I don't know if you wanted to say a few things, Amanda, or.
Thanks, Rodney. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be with all of you today for such an exciting event. There's nothing more exciting to me than a bunch of people getting together to have good conversations to create the food systems that they want. So moving towards food sovereignty, I think, is such an important part of the work everywhere, but especially in First Nations communities, where so much has been lost due to colonization. So I play a small part in supporting you and having these good conversations today. And it's a real pleasure and honor to be with all of you today. So thank you. Rodney, maybe I'll just hand it over to you just to let people know a little bit about the committee and what your mandate is, and we'll just run through a few of these slides. Do you see them there?
Yes, I do. So there was a presentation that was done by Bella Peruabino and Darlene Kitty some time ago on the issue of diabetes and chronic diseases in the USC. And the stats were very alarming, especially the projections down here. So out of that presentation, there was a committee set up between CNG and Cree Health Board. We wanted to make the committee small for now, So it was a joint committee to make recommendations and actions to implement initiatives to encourage networking development, which is something that we're trying to do here with the aim of promoting health, attaining food security, and preventing chronic diseases, access to affordable, nutritious food. As you probably will see, Miyūmīchisutāu, healthy, nutritious foods. So I think that's one of the things that we wanted to do to address. So that's basically the mandate. Next page, I guess. So this is the committee, myself, Alex Moses, Clarissa. These are all under my department. Me and Pierre Peltier from the commerce industry, Caitlin Lloyd from environment department, and then we have a legal counsel if we need one. I would get Abbott now. Darlene Kitty, who's the doctor. Me and Catherine Godin and Chantal Binet from Cree Health Board. I would say chronic diseases and nutritious foods. So that's the composition of our committee. So the goals and objectives of the engagement session is basically access to nutritious food in all the USC. With all the 9 communities, we want to gather and mobilize stakeholders to basically try to get something going, to share their knowledge, hopes, and ideas that will shape a new food action plan for our region, which is very important. Again, going back to the issue of diabetes and other chronic diseases, it's prevalent again. Grow the nutritious food network so that we can provide a way for people to continue working with these ideas after the events. So I'm going to show you again to have a food network within our territory, within our region. Provide a chance for people to share their knowledge and learn from others, current food projects and work to inspire each other. Where food comes from in UST, challenges and the opportunities for change. There are a lot of initiatives already taking place, and we just want to sort of complement all of these things. But I think it's at some level we want to have an engagement session that facilitates things for our communities to get the best out of other communities of what they're doing. So I think that's my end, right? Next page. Is that next page?
Yeah.
That's yours, right?
You can go ahead and speak to it if you like, but I can do it.
Okay, you can take over.
Okay. Thanks, Rodney. So just so you have a sense of, how this is all going to work, I'm just going to run through a few slides that kind of show how all this is being orchestrated. It's very exciting, but kind of complex because we can't all, of course, be together in one room, which is so my preference. I wish we could all be together in a big room, having a good feast on some geese or something while we have these important conversations. But instead, this is the creative outcome that we've come up with to deal with. As you know, Grand Chief said, COVID has forced our hand a little bit to get innovative and creative about how we do these things. So here we are. So the conversations that you have over the next 4 days, well, they're not happening all at once. Obviously, we're having 2 this week and then 2 in a couple of weeks. They will help us to understand better, and you will identify what your communities want your food systems to look like in the future. So this is really important. Where do you want to get to? What are you aspiring to? And then we'll also at that same time gather ideas for how we can all work to get there. So there's the what are we aiming for, and then how are we going to get there together. So these are the 2 main thrusts of the conversation today, and we'll be gathering up all of that information to put into a draft plan. So then that draft food action plan will serve us by coordinating our actions for change. So in there, we'll sort of show where there's a role for the regional organizations, like the CNG and the Health Board and others, who will lead some of that work at the regional level and also support communities' work in the plan, right? So this is a really important part of just coordinating all the pieces. And then of course, communities may choose the different priorities to work on, which is totally normal, right? You all have very unique circumstances, but those need to be part of a coordinated plan so that we can see everything that's going on. So it will just help to coordinate all of these important pieces that will contribute to the success of your food action plan and where you're going. So this is kind of a weird sketch of how this is all working. So as you noticed, if you look at the videos of different groups, so we have local events happening in all of the communities right now, right? They're varying sizes, but that we wanted to really give people the chance, if they wanted to be together and have these face-to-face conversations, because as we all know, those are the best conversations, right? So while we're in plenary, and then of course there's about 30 of you that are on Zoom as individuals. So that's where you just see the one face, right? So right now, while we're in plenary, hearing from Grand Chief and Rodney and myself, and very soon we'll hear from a bunch of speakers, we are all together in sort of one space, time, sound zone, if you will. And you're going to mostly be hearing from us on the Zoom platform. But then when we go into the discussions, right? So these will happen in small groups, breakout rooms on Zoom, as well as in your community. So if you're in the community, you'll turn off the Zoom for this point. You'll turn off your microphone, your camera and everything, and you'll just have a conversation amongst yourselves. So we've been working with all the local facilitators to make sure that we're all sort of having a similar conversation on the same questions anyway. And obviously that will be very unique, what you bring to that conversation, depending on which community or which group you're in. And then when you finish those conversations, then we're going to report back, right? So this is going to happen in a variety of ways. Obviously, we won't be able to hear back every detail of what happened in every one of these conversations. There's probably going to be about 15 different groups having conversations at the same time. Some of that will come back in writing, but at the end of each day, we will hear back just to get a sample of what great conversations happen around the table. But very, very important to point out to all of the facilitators, this is probably the most important part of all of this, is to make sure that myself and Chantal hear back from all of you, so that we can include your conversations and your priorities and your ideas in that final food action plan. So for those of you who may be on Zoom and are like, wait a minute, maybe I would like to join an in-person conversation, because that sounds like fun. We just wanted to share with you again where all those conversations are happening in each of the communities. So if I will show this to you again a little later, and you're welcome to just ask in chat if you need any more details. But we really do encourage anybody who can and who wants to join an in-person conversation. Okay, Zoom etiquette. We just got to do it so that we're all on the same page. Bear with me. I'm sure most of you consider yourselves Zoom experts at this point in the COVID pandemic. We've all spent a lot of time on Zoom, but here we go, just so we're all clear. So just to keep, remember to keep your line muted when you're not speaking. If you're joining us on a phone, that's *6. And of course, it's so lovely to be able to see each other. If you can keep your video on, please do. It's so much nicer to be able to see each other for these events. Of course, if you're having trouble hearing, you may need to turn off your video. That's one of the first things you can do. You can close things like your email programs or web browsers or anything like that. And of course, you have the option with Zoom to call in. So if you're finding the sound is really choppy and you're not hearing things properly, you can leave your computer on, but also call in using your landline. And it's a bit like a teleconference line. So you can have both going at the same time. So just so you know, you have that option. And of course, as Danielle has already shared her cell phone number, we have Danielle Wapachi from CNG who's here providing tech support. So if you have any problems at any point, keep her number close at hand. You can always call her if you need help. And thanks again, Danielle, for providing that. It's great. So we want to hear from you. So one of the fun things about Zoom that I really like is that it's totally legit to chat, right? And the way we do that, so you're not interrupting anybody. If you want to, especially those of you who are not able to sort of chat with your neighbor, right? Is you can use the chat function. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the little chat icon. And just feel free to pop in questions or comments, or maybe you're like, hey, something happened. There's this great article in the paper about that a while ago, and you want to share a link in there, something like that. Anything you want to share with the group, please, please, please feel free to share it in the chat. It's going to be very difficult for us to take questions. So we'll see how that goes after the presentations, but and we'll re-articulate this, your facilitator for those community conversations, please let them know if you have a question and they'll type it into the chat. That'll give me a sense of who has questions, and then we'll coordinate to make sure that we can answer some of your questions while we're on Zoom together. And yes, for sure, you can get copies of the presentation. So we'll make sure that those go out. Other quick Zoom tricks, you can rename yourself. I'm going to just turn off my video because apparently my internet here in Montreal is being a little bit finicky. So you can rename yourself by hovering your mouse over your video and clicking on the blue box with 3 dots and then click rename. And then you can also play around with the view. So there's a view button at the top right-hand corner. So you can try different view options until they work for you. And just remember with Zoom, you can't break it, right? It's just a computer program. So try things, see what works for you, and have fun. So as Rodney's already gone over kind of a review of the day, of the 5 days, right? So we're on day 1 now. We're just sort of setting the table for a good conversation. On day 2, that's tomorrow, June 2nd, we'll be focusing on access to traditional food. Day 3, we'll focus on healthy store-bought food. That'll be in 2 weeks on June 14th. And then day 4, we'll focus on producing food locally. So that will be on June 16th. And then we'll come back together at some point to look at, all that information. And we'll take the time to really gather up all the great information that you share with us, your ideas, your priorities, and we'll put that together into a draft food action plan that we'll have a look at together when we come back together for a day 5 session, to be determined. So for today, we are just finishing up on our welcome and opening. Very soon, we're going to hear from a number of the members of the Joint Committee for Food Access. And they're going to just share some opening sort of, here's the situation in Eeyou Istchee on different topics. Before we take a break, we will set up the discussions so that once we go to break, those of you in communities can take your break and then just go directly into your discussions. So there's going to be 2 different discussions, one on what's working well and less well to get us the food we want and need. And then the second discussion will be about our hopes and dreams about the future of food in Eeyou Istchee in our community. And then finally at 4:40, we'll all come back together on Zoom So all the communities and all the small breakout groups will come back together. We'll hear back from a couple of you, and then we'll wrap it up for the day at around 5. So that's how the day is looking. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it back to Rodney to introduce the sharing circle on our Food for Thought sharing circle. So have a wonderful event, everyone.
Thank you, Amanda. So we have Darlene Kitty, Chantal Bennett, and Kate Lloyd. They're going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation with slides, and I think that's what's going to transpire. So I don't want to take too much time. So,
Dr. Kitty, do you have some slides that you're going to share?
Yeah, I can share my screen.
Great. Did you want to introduce her at all, Rodney, or does? Oh, perfect.
Oh, wait a minute, that's a PDF, just a second. Better on the PowerPoint.
so I'll do a quick introduction to you, Darlene.
Okay.
So Darlene Chesibisco, and the Queen. So I think a lot of people know her. So I don't think she needs a complete introduction. We have Chesibisco. So okay, Darlene, you have the floor.
Right now, sorry, I'm trying to open it, but my PowerPoint is frozen. It won't go to a slideshow. I'll go back to the PDF.
Maybe you can just start, and it'll probably just take a moment to unfreeze there, Kitty, Dr. Kitty.
That's okay, I'll use the PDF. You can see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, hello everyone. I hope everyone's doing well in the COVID context. I'm glad we're moving ahead with some of our projects and meetings because it's been pretty COVID heavy since the pandemic started, but glad to see the CNG Creole Board and our communities are carrying on with other activities now. So I was invited to speak on food for thought, like what we think has been happening with our food and meals in recent years. And so I decided to reflect back on how we used to live. And also what do we think about our food and meals now? And I'm sure there's many opinions on that, but it's definitely a big change from the past. And how are our food and meals related to our health? And then how can we teach others about healthy foods and portion sizes, which I'll speak more on. This is a picture of the way we used to live, right on the land in Miyūmīchisutāu with 2 or 3 families. You can see in the top left picture, you know, how people were slim, fit, and strong. Women did the cooking. Women mostly do the cooking now, but you know, women knew how to serve food and portion food so that everyone is fed. And even in times when food was not so plentiful, you know, everyone still had a bite to eat. The bottom left picture.
Right, Dr. Kitty, your slides are not advancing.
Can you move it with her, Amanda?
I don't have any control over her slides, unfortunately.
What do you see?
Just your opening slide. If you unshare, so stop sharing.
Okay.
And then try sharing again.
So I think people want to see the PowerPoint.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. Well, just to show you, this was just kind of the topics I'll speak on. And then I was reflecting on how we used to live out on the land in Mi'kmaq, several families in the Mi'kmaq, and how everyone got fed by women who were doing the cooking and serving. And even when food was not as plentiful, people still managed to get fed. We know in our history also, I should mention that there were famines, when hunting was very difficult, and there was probably some people died because of malnutrition. But for the most part, the Cree hunters were very, quite successful, and they provided for their families. And in the old ways too, people shared their food with others. So when people were hunting geese in the spring, families are gathered together on a trap line, they would share their geese. So there was always, sharing involved. And it's a really great aspect of our history, and how we gathered and prepared food and served food and kept food for, for the next time, next meal or next week, whatever. The bottom right picture is a picture of my mom's family, Blue Boy family in Waskaganish, and there's my grandfather here. And my mom is this, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but she's the youngest there. She's 81 years old now. So, she lived on the trapline with her family near the mouth of the Rupert River. And she was born at the point of Rupert River. So, they had to do a lot of work to live well on the trapline in the bush. And of course, we know people move their camps from, summer camp to fall hunting camp where you hunt moose or Canada geese, and then stayed in a winter camp, and then you move to a spring camp where you where you hunted migrating Canada geese again. And people were very fit and strong because you had a lot of work to do around the cabin or the tent frame or the Mi'kmaq, and so our strength was quite good, and we were very fit. You can see how slim people were back in those days. So definitely the way we eat has changed. The way we gathered food has changed. Now you just have to go to the store and you go get your food off the shelf for the most part. But luckily, there's still many people who enjoy traditional food and going out hunting and fishing and picking berries. So it's something to think about. I think it's important to realize, can we go back to this? Can we continue this? We should do more of it, ideally, right? So it's something to think about. Oops. So just what I was saying, but I'll just touch on a couple of things. And I'm thinking of kind of the human body, how we need food to eat, and how our brain works when we're eating. We eat when we're hungry because there's a signal in our brain that tells us, oh, we're hungry, it's mealtime. And then we need to stop eating when we feel full or satisfied from what we ate. So I think, that's something that we're maybe not doing so well in modern days. I grew up thinking, I had to eat all that I was given, because my mom, who did the cooking, would put us at the kitchen table, me and my sisters, and we'd be eating. And she gave us like really good meals, with potatoes or rice or macaroni, with meat and with the vegetables. So we grew up eating fairly well. We were always taught not to waste things. Eat what you're given. And that kept us healthy and strong. Also, with gathering for meals, whatever you didn't eat was saved. And then whatever you got in the store had to be saved as well, like either in the freezer or, saved for a meal later that week. Or preserving food, you caught some fish, you have to freeze the fish so that it doesn't go bad. And back, you know, you know, a few decades ago to a few years ago, proportion sizes were generally smaller. But we know that nowadays people seem to have bigger portions. And if you look at people's plates at mukshans, you know, at feasts, the plates are really, you know, big and high. But feasting is a very important tradition for us. But I think we just need to rethink the portion sizes, and this, you know, deserves a good discussion and consultation with women who do cooking, and you know, we can do sharing about information about portion sizes and healthy foods with them, and they could also teach us. So, and like I mentioned, we were very active back in those days and probably less active now. So we need to also think about physical activity as we hunt or fish or do other activities. So what about nowadays? You know, well, it's easy to go to the store because it's convenient, but there's a lot of fast foods and processed foods that are not healthy. I mentioned overeating. You know, we should stop when we feel full or satisfied, and when you eat too fast, you know, you don't feel that satisfaction in having a meal, and people will overeat. You know, I've heard of some persons, when they have breakfast, they have 4 toast plus a bowl of cereal or a bowl of porridge, and that's too much carbs. So we have to educate, you know, the community members, and you know, especially the youth, you know, to give them good eating habits as they're growing up. On the other hand, you know, there are families who struggle and maybe don't have enough for a good meal. And we know breakfast is important, so that's a good point to discuss in the groups. Carbohydrates in the diet. We know there's a lot of carbohydrates in the grocery store on the shelf. There's a whole aisle in the northern store on with chips, pop, candies, cookies, crackers. You know, so we need to tone down the availability of unhealthy carbohydrates. And this has been a discussion point at the committee for some time now. Also fats in our diets, you know, people tend to eat a lot of fried foods and cooking in oil and less boiling, you know, but boiling is a good option for cooking like geese and other things. Proteins in the diet, well, there's less healthy meats. You know, sometimes it's processed food like chicken burgers, you know, they're not so healthy as chicken breast, for example. And back to portion sizes, you know, sometimes those who are cooking and serving food think the bigger the portion size, the more healthy and more stronger you're going to be. But that's not true. You know, having too much protein or too much carbs, it's you know, having potatoes and macaroni salad on a plate is too much carbs. So we have to think about eating more healthy. And one of the things I also want to touch on is, you know, how we think about people being overweight or being obese. You know, we think, I think more and more so in the last decade, at least, maybe 2 decades, that people think this is normal, you know. But again, if you remember that picture of my mom's family or the families outside the Michwap, that was normal. People were slim and fit and strong, and it's less so these days because people are not as active and we're overweight and obese. So we got to denormalize that. I don't know what good word that is. There's a better choice, I'm sure, but you know, we have to look at it that way. So for food and meals, you know, obviously to eat healthy, we need to learn about healthy foods, the 4 food groups, and make healthy choices. So rather than refined sugars, we eat foods with starches, good fats, and fiber as examples. We need to think about those 4 food groups every day at every meal. So there's a good opportunity to educate community members and those who are cooking, like the restaurants and takeouts. Back again to portion sizes, we have to learn what is a good portion size and review the plate method, which we've been promoting in diabetes care, but we need to promote it more. And again, avoid over serving and overeating. And stop eating when you're full or satisfied. It's just a picture of the Canada Food Guide for First Nations and Métis. And you can see on the top, there's the vegetables. On the right, it's the yellow part is the grains. The bottom part is the dairy products. And the orange part is the proteins, the meats and other proteins. And in the middle, it's basically a reflection of culture and traditions on how we gather meat and are active doing that. This is a snapshot of chronic diseases in Eeyou Istchee. And our chronic diseases are occurring at higher rates than the rest of Quebec. So particularly, you can see diabetes there is over 3 times that of the rest of Quebec. And this also is linked to gestational diabetes or diabetes pregnancy, of which almost half of those women will go on to develop diabetes. And we're also seeing higher rates of complications because of diabetes. That's kidney disease, amputations, and retinopathy, or how it affects the eyes. And you can also see how heart disease or cardiovascular disease rates is over twice that of the rest of Quebec. And some of the other health problems there I won't mention. This is a picture of the prevalence of diabetes since 1983. And you can see how it was only 2.4% in 1983, but now it's over 24.6% as of 2014. So diabetes has grown 10 times since 1983. And you could see, it's almost a straight line. But basically, if you look at it in another way, this could be could be a snapshot of other problems. And, if you think about diabetes, that could be a similar picture of not necessarily the same numbers, but at least the trend, the increase in cardiovascular disease, increase of patients with chronic kidney disease, increase of mental health problems, increase of other problems, obesity, for example. Population is more obese now. So our health has definitely changed since diabetes started happening in the territory, but also because of other factors. And so we must reverse this trend. We know from this previous meeting that Rodney mentioned, if we don't do something now, diabetes is going to climb even higher to over 30%, over 40% by the year 2030. I tried to find that slide, but I couldn't show you. So we need to do something now to prevent this trend from going up. And when the trend goes up, the complications will go up and other related problems. Oh, hang on a second. So what can we teach others and what can we learn from each other? It's important to talk about healthy choices, when it comes to the food groups and plate method, for example. What can we do at feasts? We can serve smaller portions, we can have healthier choices, have more vegetables, for example. And it's important to think about the history and traditions of feasts and having good portion sizes, but not, mounding plates of food. There's always cake, there's always desserts at feasts, but maybe there can be healthier choices. So it's important, to think about that history and traditions and apply it in today's context. We can live like our ancestors. We can become more physically active again, eat less fast food and junk food, and not waste food, and try to have more traditional foods. So that's just kind of a little slide on some of our feasts and our traditions. So I'll leave it like that. I think this is a great opportunity to have these meetings so that we can all learn from each other, collaborate, make suggestions, share, and have a common approach in the communities to address these issues. Thank you, Ajay.
Darling, I think we'll leave the questions a bit later on. Okay, darling? Is that okay? I know you have to leave, right? You're gonna have to leave?
Yeah, I have to leave, sorry.
Yeah. Doctors are very busy,
But you can email me, or maybe through Chantal.
Yeah.
You can answer some questions through her, maybe for the next session.
Okay, so what we'll do is I'll introduce Chantal. She's the Cree Health Board, Public Health. She's one of the contributors to references to the Cree Health Board report on chronic diseases, diabetes, and the cost of food. So she's one of the contributors. So so I'll let her speak. Shish.
Watia, Chantal Vinet Nisingason,
Oh, Chantal, we can barely hear you.
in Davidson, Miyūmīchisutāu Public Health Department.
Chantal? We can't hear you very well. Is there a way you can either get closer to the mic or?
Yes. Can you hear me better now?
Much better, thanks.
Okay, sorry, I'll start that over. Watia Chantal Nisingason, Miyūmīchisutāu Davidson, Miyūmīchisutāu Public Health Department. I am part of this committee on access to nutritious food, and I'm very, very thankful that you are all here today. I'm very pleased to see all those faces on our Zoom. Thank you. So today I simply want to talk a little bit about our food system, but first also mention what brought us here. A few years back, we had started this discussion about access to nutritious food in Eeyou Istchee, and as Rodney mentioned and Darlene, we participated in different meetings at CNG and presented some results that we had from past projects that we did in 2011 and in 2016. We visited all of our stores, and we looked at the price of food and availability of basic nutritious foods. So maybe you can show the next slide, Amanda. So those slides you have seen in the past, so I just took them out. I'm not going to go into detail. I just want to refresh your memory of where all this discussion about access to nutritious food started. So in 2016, we could see that the price of the nutritious food basket, the basket of basic nutritious food, was $322 for a family of 4. Next slide, please. And when we compare that to other regions of Quebec, we could see that there was approximately 30 to 40% difference in price with other regions. So you can press once or twice, Amanda, on your, yes. So you can see the difference with other regions. So, so that really started us and really started the discussion about the price of food in Eeyou Istchee. And we wanted to engage the leaders on this and mention this issue to people of Eeyou Istchee. So it didn't stay as a report on our shelves, but that people could hear of this issue on price of food in Eeyou Istchee. Next slide, please. So we also compared that to the income of families. And when we looked at the cost of food compared to the income of low-income families, we saw that it was approximately 75% of the income of low-income families that would be required to buy basic nutritious food. So every time a family spent approximately $100, at least $75 would be needed to buy basic nutritious food. So that seemed quite unrealistic. So this is why we wanted to talk about price of food in Eeyou Istchee. In addition to that, while we were looking at price of food, we also look at the 71 food items that were on our list. And I think in most stores it had improved since 2011. So you can show the next slide, Amanda. Yes, so it had greatly improved since 2011 when we did the data collection in 2016. So, but there were still many items missing. And I think that's one of the things we are all noticing sometimes. Our shelves are empty, and sometimes, especially before delivery day. So sometimes basic nutritious food are not in the stores, and some days it's worse than others. And I think we have to acknowledge that. So it's hard for people to choose basic, healthy, nutritious food when they are not necessarily in our stores. And so we want to talk about that with the store managers and the leaders of Eeyou Istchee and make sure that we have basic nutritious food in our stores. So that's another concern I want to bring back, and I'm hoping we can discuss that this week. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about the food system of Eeyou Istchee. I think that's very important that in this Food for Thought introduction to the event, that we think of our food system in Eeyou Istchee. So maybe you can go to the next slide, Amanda. Yes. So our food system in Eeyou Istchee is very unique. I think it's something that is quite different than anywhere else in Quebec. We have great traditional food that come from Eeyou Istchee that are harvested by people of Eeyou Istchee. If you ask most people, we know where our great traditional food are from, which lake the fish was harvested, where the bear was hunted, and all of that. So I think the traditional food system is very rich, and we know a lot of this about this food system. But on the other hand, we have lots of food that are coming from outside of Eeyou Istchee, that are produced outside of Eeyou Istchee in Quebec, in Canada, or even in other countries, in Mexico or in Chile. So those come to us by truck, by plane, and we are less connected to that food system. And I think this week will be an opportunity to talk about where our food comes from and where it's produced. What do we know about this food that comes to us from? It's sold in our stores, but oftentimes we know very little of where it's from. And many of those food are processed and are not necessarily the best one. Like Dr. Kitty pointed out before, the foods that we find on our shelves in the stores are not necessarily always the healthiest ones. So we want to make sure that people are able to make those healthy choices when they go in their stores and find the healthy food options. So I hope we can discuss that soon in our sessions. And another aspect of our food system that I want to mention today is that we have very little food production at the moment in Eeyou Istchee. Of course, we have our nice traditional food, but most of the food that we find in our store, or pretty much all of them, are produced outside of Eeyou Istchee. So we do not have commercial production per se at the moment, but maybe that could change in the future. And I think as we are planning our vision, we can start thinking about that too. So we can see how we could have food produced maybe closer to Eeyou Istchee, if not in Eeyou Istchee anyway. So I think that's it for me for today. I really wish that you will engage in those discussions this week, and I am very thankful that you're here, and I'm looking forward to hear about all your great ideas to improve access to food in Eeyou Istchee. And I hope you can join us all. You can join all discussions this week and in 2 weeks as well. Thank you so much.
Okay,
You there, Rodney? It sounded like you were having some audio problems.
okay, so it's going to be Caitlin next. I think the whole purpose of the sharing circle is to stimulate a discussion at the community level. So Caitlin Lloyd from the Department of Environment.
Everybody, can you hear me well? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin Lloyd. I'm an environmental analyst with the Environment and Remedial Works Department. And I'll be talking about climate change and access to traditional food. So over the past 10 years, the Cree Nation government has been collecting a lot of information and knowledge from Cree land users and scientists in order to identify the impacts caused by climate change in Eeyou Istchee and to develop potential adaptation measures. The CNG's Environment Department has developed climate change adaptation action plans for 3 communities, and we've co-hosted and organized 2 climate change forums to discuss the impacts and how to take action. So this is just a little overview of what kind of projects we've done in the past 10 years, and there's some that are still ongoing at the moment. You can switch to the next slide. So in Eeyou Istchee, climate change is progressing rapidly and the impacts are noticeable. Scientists predict a temperature increase of 3.6 degrees Celsius by 2050. Over the past several years, the weather has become more unpredictable in the territory. We're seeing rising temperatures, more intense rainfalls, less snow, more extreme weather, and unpredictable ice freeze and thaw. And this in turn is causing impacts on traditional activities, on access to the territory and traditional food, on health, and on the transmission of knowledge and culture. And actions need to be taken to adapt to these changes. You can switch to the next slide. Climate change is having an impact on the biodiversity and traditional food. So over the course of the projects that we've done in the past, we've gathered a lot of information from community members, land users, and these are some of the observations that we've heard from these projects. So certain species, such as waterfowl, grouse, caribou, and muskrat are decreasing in numbers. And then on the other hand, some species are actually increasing, such as bears and wolves. Animal behaviors are changing. For example, bears are coming closer to the communities and geese flight routes are changing and unpredictable, having an impact on the hunting season. And also new species are entering the region due to warmer weather and new vegetation that is growing due to the changing weather. So an example of this is the white-tailed deer. And with this, these new species can bring new diseases and health issues to other animals that are traditionally in the territory. So we're seeing more health issues such as ticks on moose and other animals. Also, the taste of the meat from certain animals is changing, and fish are becoming smaller. And another example of an observation that we've seen in the area is that berries are becoming more scarce and smaller in size. This is just a few examples that I'm giving, a few examples of the observations, and there's more details in the reports that you can find on our website, the CNGS website. You can switch to the next slide. So climate change is also having an impact on how we can access land and camps to be able to hunt and fish. So travel is becoming increasingly unsafe with unpredictable weather and ice conditions. Unpredictable ice conditions, not knowing if the ice is safe or not. And shorter winters are leading to shorter hunting and trapping periods, which all lead to harder to access the land. You can switch to the next slide. Thank you. So with this, actually, with longer and warmer summer seasons, there's also more opportunities for local fruit production, as Chantal was saying earlier, that we can look into. We could look into greenhouses and community gardens. And this can provide healthy, nutritious fruits and vegetables to the communities, and also in this reduce the reliance on store-bought food. And this in turn can also lead to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions if there's less transport trucks shipping in fresh vegetables every day. So next slide. Amanda actually asked me to share this in the link in the chat. So I'll share this link in the chat, but this is the link where you can find all of the reports that we've done in the past. So the 3 reports from the community projects, the action plans, and the report on the regional forum that was held in East Maine in 2018. And that's it for me. I think you can move to the next slide.
So Rodney, did you want to make any final comments? I know, unfortunately, we don't have Thomas Kuhn here with us today to talk about traditional food, but do you want to share anything?
I think it was just, Abel touched base a bit on as he was talking about it. So I guess we could sort of take a break and go to the next items.
So yes, well, first, before we do that, I'm wondering if there's any questions. Again, if you have any questions for any of the speakers, if you're online, you can raise your hand with the reactions button. If you're in communities, please just send a chat, or if anybody wants to put their question in chat, please feel free to do so, and that'll allow everyone to see the questions. So I'll just give that a second, see if there's any questions out there for any of the speakers.
Questions or comments?
Or comments, yeah.
To comment live?
Yeah, sure. Would you just want to introduce yourself first? Sure.
Hi, my name is Ansita. What I'm kind of concerned about is I'm seeing like a lot of the stuff that we're bringing out and what the speakers have spoke about, and I see a lot of the physical aspect of this being addressed, but I don't see any of the emotional part of it being addressed. So I'm just putting it out there, and with that, a lot of, like, I do have a lot of comments. I've been writing notes and stuff. I do want to address some of this during the next 2-3 weeks that we're going to be going over this. So I want to be involved and engaged in this. So that's my question, or my kind of like my concern.
Could you just elaborate what you mean by the emotional aspect of all of this? And maybe just
Okay.
direct your question if you think there's one person. Maybe it's too bad Darlene's not here.
I guess more like the conditions, the behaviors, and the attitudes behind food, and the way that each person sees it. You know, we've all been through different life experiences, and our behaviors and attitudes and have been conditioned on us concerning food. You know, like, for example, there are some families that are like completely fit. They're always moving, they're always doing stuff. Their families are fit also. You don't see many of them obese. But then you see the other there's other families that are almost everyone in the family is obese. There's reasons behind this. I mean, like I'm kind of concerned about addressing more of that, because, like, for example, an emotional eater, when they're angry, when they're sad, you know, they'll go to food. Why will they go to food? Because it was probably conditioned upon them while they were growing up. The way these conditions were applied upon us were through punishment, like finishing everything on the plate, saving food, don't waste anything. A lot of that was conditioned upon us with punishment. Blackmailing, saying, you know, if you don't eat this, I'm gonna do this, or if you don't finish everything on your plate,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
gonna tell people, or whatever. Bribing, soothing. There's a lot of times, you know, when our children are crying or they're upset about something, that has to do with their environment or whatever the case is. A lot of times we'll say, oh, you know, come here, I'll make you a snack, or oh, come here, I'll give you a candy. And then there's the bribing part of that is, okay, you got to stop crying and I'll give you a candy. You know, be quiet, otherwise. So, and then there's the threats. You know, if you don't eat everything on your plate, you're not going to have dessert like everyone else. Eat more, be stronger type of thing, where, you know, that's another thing. So all of this has become emotional eating in a lot of our people.
Yeah.
And
Great
all
points,
of this
Ansita.
has come from residential school.
Mm.
My mother has told me about all the treatment that she received when she was sitting at the table, when she was eating in a residential school. And all of that, I see all of that. So this is the part that I'm kind of concerned about, you know, what is behind all that. So did I elaborate a bit more enough?
That was perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Ansita. I understand much better what you're bringing to the table. And I think those are all, you know, just to highlight, this is the amazing thing about having a forum like this, right? Is we all bring our own perspectives on food to the table, right? And that's exactly why this type of forum is so important, so that we can make sure that whatever food action plan we come up with addresses these and draws on these rich perspectives, such as the one that Ansita brought. So as you said, Ansita, I don't hear a question in there. I hear that you have a lot to bring to the food action plan. So I'm going to turn to some other comments. I see someone from East Main has their hand up. And then we'll go to Irene Napash. And I just want to say thank you to Grand Chief, who just commented that he's going to have to leave. So thank you once again for being with us today, Grand Chief. It was a real honor to have you here with us. Okay, go ahead. And just whoever's in East Main, go ahead and introduce yourself before you comment.
Okay, so I'm Leslie Tomaduk. I'm working in East Main. I have a thought that I've been thinking about for some time now, and thinking about our geese that are not as plentiful as they used to be, you know, our hunt and our harvest. But I think about the migration of our geese and how they fly from the south. And if we look at the farms that are popping up all over the place in southern Quebec and also southern Ontario because they have the same harvest problem, I guess. I don't know if there's any regulations on the number of farms that can be popped up or installed or whatnot. And what would be our response to that as a Cree Nation to the southern nation of the provinces, that of all these farms that are popping up and our geese are stopping there, and I don't know what they're deciding, if they're going to come up north or not, because they have everything there, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was just a thought that I've had for a few years that if there was ever anything that would, any research that was looked into that to see what impact the farming has on our food safety and our safety of our harvest.
That sounds to me, thank you so much for that. That's a great comment. I don't know if any of the speakers necessarily have something to say to that. If you do, please just put your hand up. I don't want to put any of you on the spot, but that sounds to me like a really important thing maybe to bring into our conversation that's going to happen very soon. Again, to identify as something that's missing. Do we know about the impact of farming on our geese, right? Like, so that's, again, all of these perspectives, very, very important to help us elaborate what we know and what we don't know, what we're doing and what we're not doing. Okay, we'll take one more question from Irene Naposh, and then we're going to just explain what's going to happen in the conversation after the break.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. I'm really looking forward to the rest of this conference. I just wanted to note with regards to the idea of health and food. Those two go hand in hand, and I believe that is one of the reasons why we're looking at our food system is because of the deteriorating health of our people being affected by diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and so forth. It really is staggering to see those numbers. Every time I see them, I just sort of get a little anxiety attack. It scares me. What I would like to make sure that we take into consideration as we have this conference or as work unfolds on this subject is that we ensure that we look at, it goes hand in hand with what Ansita was talking about. I observe a lot of, what would it be, Ashablant attitudes towards, or how do you say that, attitudes of undermining the reality or the severity of having diabetes. And I almost have concerns with regards to the way the medical field is talking to the population. It's a, yes, passive attitude. I find that the way people are spoken to when it comes to their health needs to be looked at. I'll give myself as an example. I'll use myself as an example. I went to the doctor and I told her, "How come you never told me I was fat?" Right, jokingly. But she was sort of shocked when she heard me say that. And why would I say that? I said, because it's a reality. And my weight affects my overall health. It affects so many things, and you never ever talk to me about it. To you, I'm in perfect health, and I'm not. People would consider me somewhat thin, but I'm not. I'm in the obese category, and it's really just, nobody talks about it. If anybody should be talking about it, it's my doctor, but we don't talk about it, right? So the medical side of it, how do we begin? It's about educating the people on health and so forth. I know it doesn't go hand in hand with the food safety. Well, I say it goes hand in hand, but we have to change everything when it comes to that, the attitudes around it. Only then we'll be able to teach our people on how to approach food, right? So I just wanted to note that and see if we can make sure we keep it in mind as we go along in working towards something on the subject. Thank you. Thank you for having this conference.
Thanks so much, Irene. Great reflections. I'm just wondering if any of the speakers have any response to anything that was said.
Make sure you don't say I'm fat, any of the speakers. I'm kidding.
For sure, I'm not going to say that, Irene. Yes, I just.
Chantal, we're having trouble hearing you again.
Sorry about that. I just want to say that I heard your concern regarding health and emotional eating. I think these for sure can be brought up in the discussion that you'll have in your communities, and I think these, as Amanda mentioned before, are important to keep in mind. I'm very thankful that you are able to bring those up today. And these are not always the easiest topic to have, right? We never like to talk about our weight or about emotional eating, but thank you for bringing those up. And for Leslie, I have never heard of any studies being done about farming and geese, but maybe Caitlin, you've heard of something on that? On my side, I've never heard of that, but we should definitely look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, but you make a good point, and it's definitely something that should be researched and looked into, I think. Yeah.
I think I just want to touch base on the farming, and there is a marine study being done with Niskamun on eelgrass and everything, and there is some migratory studies being done on that. I'm not exactly sure what the status is on it, and they did talk about a bit of that aspect of what Leslie Tambik mentioned. So I'm gonna follow up with it to see where the status is on that one.
Great, thanks, Rodney. And thank you to all of our speakers. That's fantastic. I think we've got, I'd like to get you off to a break because I know you've all been sitting in your chairs now for an hour and a half, if not more. But just before we do that, I just wanted to set you up for the conversations we're going to be having after the break, because in communities, as you know, once we send you off into these breakout groups, you will be on your own for a while. So I just wanted to set this up. Can everybody see my screen? It doesn't look like it's being shared properly. Can someone just give me a sign? Okay, I'm gonna
See your screen, but it's we see all of your apps open.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let me try that again. There we go. Okay, that must look a bit better. Okay, so we're going to have two conversations here, and I was kind of alluding to it a little bit as all of you were starting to mention things that are working well, but especially the things that are not working so well, right? So in the small groups, after you come back from break, you're going to, of course, start by introducing yourselves if you don't know each other. I know in communities you probably already know each other. And then we're going to go through each of these broad categories that we've identified. So traditional food, healthy store-bought food, and locally produced food, and start to map out the food system. So all the different parts that we already have working and not working so well in all these aspects of the food system. So we've already heard today that there's definitely things that are not working so well. I would say in the healthy store-bought food category is that there's kind of a gap in education, right? Maybe on the medical system, a gap in talking about emotional eating and getting at some of those root causes of poor eating, right? So that would go in the what's not working so well category. So you're going to spend about an hour going through. Your facilitators will help you do this in a way that makes sense. And importantly, and just a reminder to all facilitators that a really important part of doing this is doing a big brainstorm, get all the ideas you can up there, and then group the things that are sort of similar together and label them with a different color. So what I'm hearing already is a lot of concern around education, for example. So there might be lots of different ideas around education that you can group together and put under a label called education. So you'll probably, and then if you need to, you're welcome to, I left a blank page, or I suggest you leave a blank page. If you're finding something that's being named that's working well or not so well, that doesn't quite fit into these 3 categories, that's okay. Create another category, put it up on another wall, but we still want to hear about it, okay? So then you're going to take a break after that discussion. That should last about 40 minutes. To an hour, and then you'll take another break. If you're on Zoom, we will bring you back together and send you back into breakout groups potentially. But then the second discussion is about creating that dream or a vision of where we're trying to go together, right? So this is a really fun part, and this is where, you know, I think we're all going to wish that we were in a room together, because this is much more fun if you're in a room together. So we're going to try and answer the question, what are your hopes and dreams for the future of food in Eeyou Istchee and our community? So what's a dream or a vision in this context? It's a description of the desired state or the ultimate condition that this food action plan is working to achieve, right? And we're talking like in 30 or 50 years. So it's a long-term vision where you want this food action plan to get you to. It's almost like your North Star, right? That shining light that's way off in the distance that you may never get to, but is going to help sort of steer the ship and steer your passage over the land and the waters as you do your work over the next few decades, really, right? None of this stuff is going to be reversed overnight. So it should be visionary, right? Really something you want to get those big ideas that are going to inspire you when you're feeling down, when things are getting tough. This is a really important part of a good vision. We want to keep it brief, right? It's not going to be a whole novel. It's going to be like a nice tight paragraph and relatively general. So we're not talking about specific projects or specific activities. Those will all come into the food action plan, but now we're talking about where it is that we want to get to together. What does that future look like when all of these things that have been brought up today have been resolved and your people are healthy and the land is healthy? I'm just going to share this great example of a vision statement from some work that I do on healthy country planning and land use planning that I just love. So I'm just going to read it out just to give you an idea of what you're aiming for in your vision. So when our work is successful, this is from the Hupa, Yurok, and Karuk's Healthy Country Plan. They're in what's known as Northern California. And they put together a plan to bring back traditional use of fire in their communities. So when our work is successful, life will be thriving with deer, birds, mushrooms, open prairies, grasslands, and clear creeks. There's laughing. Children are playing all over. All of the brush is gone and we can see the river. The land all the way down the road has been burned. It's like the pre-contact landscape, and we're able to truly live off the land. We get that humble and respectful feeling. Our prayers with our ancestors are heard because our connection with the land is growing stronger and stronger. These prayers are carried by the smoke and answered by the fire. People are leading and the agencies support it. A little way back and a long way out, we have the knowledge to make rain. So you can see how this is just beautiful. Like it almost brings tears to my eyes when I read this, right? So this is the kind of thing we're aiming for, just to give you a little sense of that. So in communities, the way you're going to do this is you're going to create a big drawing of the future, right? So just to get creative, to get visual, what does that future look like? And then you're going to stand back after 10 or 15 minutes of drawing and have a good conversation. Make sure that everyone shares something in your group. And you can keep adding to that drawing as you talk, use Post-its, use whatever you want to really bring that to life. And please, please, please make sure someone is taking good notes, because that'll be a really rich conversation. We want to hear it. We want to get all that information back so we can write it up. If you're on Zoom, you're going to be doing your own individual drawings or grabbing something in your house or your office that represents this vision of the future for you. And you're going to share that online. Much less interesting, but we do what we can with the technology we have. Again, we'll make sure that someone is taking notes. So that's what we're going to do for the rest of the afternoon. And then at 4:40, we're going to all come back together. So facilitators, just keep an eye on the time, make sure you have time to do all these different pieces. And I just like to let folks know who are facilitating online. I've shared a Zoom Jamboard link for you in chat, so please have a look. If you don't have it, please stay on at the break and I'll help sort you out. Any questions about what we're doing for the next couple hours? So I'm really excited to have, it sounds like all of you have things to share and perspectives to bring to these conversations. So this is the place to get all of those ideas up onto a board and
All
part
you
of the
just showed us from what we'll be discussing. Can you send that to us or share it with us while we're in discussion?
Yeah, but don't worry. We're going to walk you all through this in small groups after the break. Okay. Great. Okay, so we'll come back. Those of us on Zoom, let's come back at 5 after 3. Okay, so we'll take a 10-12-minute break. So while you're taking a break, just mute yourself, turn your video off, and then when we come back, we'll turn our videos on and send you out into breakout groups. Okay, so have a great break, everyone, and we'll see you very soon. If any of the facilitators have questions about which direction or what questions or anything, please just stay on the line with me and I'll happily answer any of your questions.
Maybe we can share the table again, Amanda, of where the other conference room are.
Sure, yeah.
Some people want to join that they are in the community but attending through Zoom at the moment. You can join your local co-facilitator for the next step of the discussion.
There we go. There, it's up. Thanks.
So in Waswanipi, the event is taking place at the sports complex in Mistisney. It's at the ASD conference room in the CNG building in front of the lodge. So it's in the basement. You're welcome to join. In Ujebugumu, it's at the fire hall. In Nemska, it's at the youth center. In Waskaganish, at the CNG conference room. In East Main, it's at the clinic today. In Wemingee at the band office, and in Chisaspi at the band office. So if you want to join those and having discussions in your community, you're welcome to go and take a few minutes of your break to walk to those conference rooms. Thank you.
And we just got a little message saying that in Chisaspi, they're at the Fort George conference room.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that, Chantal. Does anybody, any of the facilitators, the co-facilitators have questions?
Hi, Amanda.
Yeah.
Just to make sure, so we're only meeting all together at 4:40, right? So until then, we're in small groups, even for the break and everything?
Yeah, I think that's how we're going to do it. So you can just, whenever the conversation comes to a break, we'll send out, Danielle and I will send out little timing reminders just to say, oh, have you taken a break yet? You might want to consider, things like that. But yeah, I think the small groups will just leave you in small groups for the entire time. And please, please, please feel free to ask for help if you need to by using that ask for help button.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Maud. Caitlin, you're all good? Great. Good presentation, by the way.
Oh yeah, so we're on break now. I can stop my video and mute. Yeah, I'm good.
Great. All right, I'm gonna go look after myself as well. So Danielle, we'll just, be ready. Like already I can see there's about 9 people who have left.
Yeah, I'm still redistributing.
Perfect.
As I go. I'm seeing the numbers switch, so I'm just redistributing them.
Perfect. Great. I'm sure.
Except for room 6, that one's just staying as it is.
Perfect. Yeah. Great. Okay. And don't forget to take a break so you can relax. Go to
Yeah,
the
you need me to click the open, right? Because I'm the one who has it open.
Yes.
Because I have the screen open. Okay, so I'm going to wait to take my break
Actually,
until everybody has began.
Yeah.
And once everybody's in their room and everything's okay, then I'll go and take a quick break.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Danielle. I'll be right back.
No problem.
Danielle, do you hear me?
I do. I don't know who's talking, but I do.
Oh, my name is Lillian.
Hi.
I'm in Chesapeake, but how do you do this, like the Zoom?
What do you mean?
Like, do we go in a separate rooms or we have to go to the building, like at the band office?
It's really up to you. If you want to take part in the Zoom, I have we have what's called breakout rooms. It's one of the features that Zoom has, and I'm controlling that. So once our break is over, I'm going to open up those rooms, and everyone's going to be automatically moved into the rooms that they've been assigned. So it's up to you. If you wanted to take part in person and you want to go to where it's being held there in your community, you can. But if you don't want to and you want to be on Zoom, that's also fine.
Oh, okay, I thought everybody will go in because I always go into the breakout rooms when I go on Zoom.
That's what we're doing. We're going to use breakout rooms, but I haven't opened up the rooms yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
make sure.
Make sure.
You didn't want to be just sitting there twiddling your thumbs by yourself. I understand. Yeah, no problem.
I didn't want to go to the band office because I work at the courthouse.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's no need. So once we're done, when I open it up, everybody should see themselves moved into the room that they've been assigned to. So you can just wait.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
So Danielle, it just occurred to me that I should probably share these two Jamboard links with you. Because that might be one of the places that people get hung up. I think we're both going to get requests for help if people need help. I suspect they won't, but if you get any of those messages, and it's not something that you can solve, feel free to just text me and I'll excuse myself from my group.
Okay.
And you see how you can join different rooms once you'll see once they're open, there'll be an option for you to join the room yourself.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think we lost Namska.
Okay, I might have turned their video off. I mean, the communities are now on their own. So if anybody is back online who's going to be meeting on Zoom, you can turn on your video, turn on your, just to give us a little thumbs up if you're going to keep your video off, just so we can know who's back in the room.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm just testing the mic. We got a mic. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, you're in Waskaganish?
Yeah.
So for this next part, you're going to be having a conversation just with the folks in your room, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you can just.
But the mic is working?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So if anyone from any of the communities where you're going to be having in-person conversations now, if you can hear me, please turn off the volume so that you don't want to be interrupted by the conversations that are going on here. Now is your time to just have conversations with folks that are in the room with you. Joshua, it looks like there's just two of you there, right? Yeah, okay. Do you guys want to join into an online conversation? Yeah, okay, great. Super, so why don't you come up closer to the video cameras so we can see you. And Danielle will place you into one of the groups. Great.
Who are we talking about? I'm sorry.
Wapmagusti, which I'm pronouncing terribly. I'm sorry.
What next?
There we go.
So I should in room 6, right?
Sure.
Okay.
So they're not in the community room, yeah?
They're in the community room.
Yeah, so take them out of the community room, and just because there's only 2 of them there, so.
Oh, okay. I'll move them into room 1.
Perfect.
Okay.
What's that?
This is Irene. Can I also join a room?
Yes, absolutely. Anybody who's on as an individual right now, you will be placed into a room. It was mostly just because the communities, if they've got lots of people around the table, they're going to be having this part of the conversation in person. Unlike us, who we're going to be proceeding now with a conversation online. So what's going to happen in just a moment? Welcome back, everyone. In just a second, Darlene is going to wave her magic Zoom wand and send us all into breakout groups. So if you haven't experienced this before, welcome to the wonders of online community organizing. So it's really very straightforward. You'll be asked to join a room. You just click join. The other thing I just wanted to share with you is I'm just going to show you quickly, introduce you to Jamboard. You're going to have a chance to do this. I don't want to share this. We're all on different Jamboards. So I just wanted to give you a quick orientation to Jamboard before I send you all off into your breakout rooms. So this is what Jamboard looks like. It's the equivalent of all standing at a wall and having Post-its, a bit like what we described is going to be happening in the communities. So basically, all you need to know is 3 key things. First is where to find your sticky note. So you can see here when I hover over this little icon, it says sticky note. You just click on a sticky note, type in whatever it is. I'm going to put my name for right now and click save. Okay. And that gives you a sticky note that you can then move around. You can change its size. If you're like, whoops, I meant to put my last name, you can double click on it and put your last name in, or whatever it is, add things, change things. You can change other people's as well, right? So just so you know, there's nothing proprietary about these Post-its. The important thing you need to know is that it's very, very possible to do things that you don't mean to do. Okay, so let's say, for example, I deleted the Post-it and I was like, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. The undo function, this is very important, is up on the upper left-hand corner here. So you just have to click it and boom, that thing that you just deleted will reappear magically, okay? The third thing you need to know about Jamboard is how to move between screens. So up here at the top, on this one you see 1/20, but there are some arrows on either side. So that helps you to move back and forth through the frames, okay? So as you can see, we're going to be having that conversation on what's working well and what's not working so well, or missing, or a problem, right? Around traditional food, around healthy store-bought food, and producing food locally, okay? So we're going to, all in our small groups, fill up these Jamboards full of ideas. As I said before, we're going to start with yellow Post-its, or whatever color your group chooses. But try and just use one color for each side and then label them. Remember, we talked about grouping them and labeling them. You're going to do that same exercise here in Jamboard. So that's it. That's the task that you have at hand. And I'm just going to double check. Yeah, it does look like we created a blank page here at the end of each group. So if there's stuff that you're like, wait a minute, this is great, but it doesn't really fit in what we're doing, please feel free to use this space however you want. So I'm just going to put parking lot here on mine. You're welcome to label it however you want. But if anything comes up in your conversations that you don't want to lose, please feel free to add them there. So facilitators in particular, do you have any questions? Okay. Please make sure that the first thing you do once everyone arrives in your room is to share the link to the Jamboard. So everyone, just so you know, I didn't share it because we have two different Jamboards going, but the first thing we will all do is get onto Jamboard, and you can go through that exercise with everyone on the first page of adding your name, just so you're clear that people can use it. If people are not able to use it, that's okay. As a facilitator, you can just ask them for their comments and add it into a sticky note, okay? So not everybody needs to be on Jamboard if it's not working for them, okay? But that's really our record of this conversation. Those are the only notes that are going to come out of the conversation. So just try and capture what you can in there. Okay, I think we're set. Any last questions before we jump into breakout groups? All right, I'm pretty excited. And please turn on your videos once you're in there so you can see who's there. Wonderful. Okay, have a great conversation, everyone. And if you need to, just don't feel shy about asking for help.
Also.
Awal January.
Человек, мы могу себе читать.
Awal January, alright.
Party.
Yeah. Everybody okay with that discussion there? Yeah. Yes. You're okay, Michelle? Yes, I'm okay. There's other people at the other conference room there too, but I hope everyone's okay. Yeah. If you know if there's anything else, I'll stay and speak around. Okay. Want people back from their bed there in your conference? One person is listening.
I thought I was supposed to be with Chesapeake people, so.
You're in a different one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, the. What?
Okay, well, we can start. Yeah. So the way they're doing it is we're going to have our own discussion here. We have our posters I had to kind of fill out, and then the people that.
You hear me? Yes, I'm here. So you are in the conference room. There's a few people with you, isn't it? Yeah, no, we're here.
Hi. Yeah. So the people in Zoom are I had doing their own conversation, like I had people from that were, for example, April is in her own room. But I had, as for the ones in each community, I had Janet to get on of the discussion here. So each there's 2 posters per I have per what can I call them? What can I call them? Well, there's two posters for traditional food. So I gave you Post-its. So the green one is what is working well. So for the green one, what is working well in our community for traditional food? The purple one that you have is what is not working well in our community in regards to traditional food. And then there's healthy store-bought food in that corner over there. So in our store, what is where I open lane? What is working well? What is not working well? Here is producing food. Our blueberry farm. What is working well? What is not working well? Or we have I think we have a greenhouse that is not very active. So that could be something that's either not working well or that we could do something with. And if there's any other ideas, like, I don't know, if it doesn't fit in the traditional food, our store-bought food, or producing food, it can go here. This one will be after our discussion with these ones. So we can do it all together, or we can separate in small groups, but I think we're a pretty small group now. So they just pick. So, for example, one of the things that I heard, I have, who was it? Dr. Kitty? I think she. No, not Dr. Kitty. I have Chantal Binet. She was talking about the nutrition food basket. So at the clinic, we have nutrition food baskets that go to families in need, or I have low-income families. If there's
sometimes low-income families might not have access to nutritious food, or like they might need a emergency. Yeah. So the clinic sometimes makes a food basket for them, and it includes like vegetables and healthy like eggs, milk, and all that. So that's what she was talking about. But most of the stuff in the basket, sometimes we don't have access at our store or at open late, because sometimes we might not have vegetables, or sometimes it might be too expensive or stuff like that. Traditional food, it could be like what's working well right now. Like, is the MSCC getting traditional food on a regular basis? If it is, then you can put it's working well.
Hello, Sassy people. Can you hear me?
기업이한테 다 천지지워.
Hello, Stephen.
빠져와봄드는.
Hello, it's Chantal sitting in front of Rodney's Stephen said there was Rodney in this group, so I stole his computer. How are you guys?
Hi.
We don't have the Jamboard.
No, you don't need a Jamboard to know today. You need your flip charts.
Okay.
Okay.
We have
We're
them.
doing this discussion 1. So discussion 1 is what's going well, what's not going so well. And in terms of traditional food and local food production. So you need a few flip chart papers out.
Okay.
And
They were talking about colors.
So you can choose, depending on the colors you receive for the post-it, one color for what's going well and another color for what's not going so well, for example.
Okay, we got it.
Yeah?
Okay.
Great. So I'll ask that you're transferred to my group. I have all the co-facilitator in the same group, but it seems that you were misplaced. So I'll ask Amanda to change that.
Okay.
So you have about 20 minutes for that first activity now. So take out as many ideas as you can. So one idea per post-it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I won't see you. Yeah, okay. Out loud, so maybe like, if I read them out loud, then maybe somebody might have an idea to build on. Or have a way to solve it. And we can add it here. So what's working for traditional food is sharing traditional food at feast. Especially in community. Finding different recipes to a healthy traditional food diet, access to fish,
Oh,
Sasashtistano. You know.
Yeah, Sasashtistano ganyan.
Same here in OJ. Where's this in Chesapeake?
Chesapeake, yeah.
Oh.
OJ.
OJ.
OJ. Mugan sinasinan. Mugan sinasinan. Off what you speed your off what you speed your camera. What you nuksan? So jibadagano na.
Welcome back, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. So that was quite, we all had quite the conversation. Have we got folks from the communities coming back as well? Community-based conversations. I see most of their, I'll just give, I don't know if Chantal. A little note. How did your conversation? Oh, there we go. We've got Waskaganish is here. We have OJ here. Great. Okay, so we have a number of the community. Fantastic. Okay, so we'd love to hear back. Let's just hear back about the vision, because I think that that's really, as I said, that's the North Star for this food action plan. That's the highest level of organizing, is to start to create a vision, because only when we can see where we want to go can we actually figure out how to get there, right? So that's a really important part of creating a plan for a region that everyone's going to be able to contribute to. So I'd love to hear back from a handful of groups, you know, just that high level. I don't want to hear everything you talked about in your vision, but really like the high level beautiful nuggets that came out of your conversation that you'd like to share back with the group. So I know, I'll get it. And Sita, if you don't mind kicking us off, I know you were in my group, so I know you're ready to go with that.
Okay.
Get everyone else.
So I'm going to the page 5. That's what I'm referring to, right?
Yeah, no, nobody will, well, I could share it, I guess. Why don't I'll share the screen. Why don't I do that?
Okay, that'd be good.
Right.
Okay. So there was a few of us that spoke at the end to share what our hopes and dreams are for food in Eeyou Istchee and our communities. I spoke a little bit about, I hope in the future to see that our schools are teaching our young people, how to harvest food, how to grow and harvest their own food. I'm hoping to see at every Crease School Board school a garden at the back where gardening is being taught. I'm also hoping to see in each of the communities where the neighborhoods are, or however the community is set up in clusters, to have a type of a community garden in each neighborhood where people from each of the homes can gather together and teach each other how to garden, how to grow and harvest their own food, where everybody can help and share together. I'm also hoping to see in the future a healed nation, a nation that will be eating healthy with healthy intentions and not bogged down by conditions that have been put upon us, that have trickled down through the years from our residential school systems and behaviors that came out of that. I'm hoping to see this meeting is being recorded. Oh, yeah. I'm hoping to see, I shared an image. I'm not sure if I can share it right now. This is what the image that I had shared. Okay, it's because you're sharing, that's why. It was an image of a garden.
Yeah, we can share that in the chat afterwards, Ansita, but I'd love to hear from as many groups as we can before we wrap up today. So
okay, so and then we had another person who brought up values. She would like to see values strengthened, no bragging about their kills. She would like to have our people honor the life that gave itself to feed you. So meaning to give honor to the moose, the caribou, whatever it is that you're taking from the land. what else should I read from here, Amanda?
I think that's great. And that's exactly what we wanted. It's just a sample because it's not coherent yet, right? So that's great.
Okay.
It just gives us
Okay.
a real sense of that beautiful conversation and those
All right.
ideas that are emerging.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Who would like to go next? And maybe if you're, I'd love to hear from some of the communities, and maybe you have like some images or maybe just words to share. Namaska, I just saw someone move the camera there. Did you want to share something with us from Namaska? Not to put you on the spot.
Hello?
Hello.
You hear me?
We can, but if you come closer to the computer, we'll probably be able to hear you a bit better.
Computer. Yeah, laptop. Laptop. Microphone. Microphone. One microphone.
Yeah, because otherwise it's really echoey, but we'd love to hear what your conversation was about in Womenji, about your vision for the future.
All right. Enough to see. Can you hear me well now?
That's better, yeah, thanks.
Okay. Right there, I don't know if you can see the our sticky pad there.
Oh yeah.
And we have their hopes and dreams.
Uh-huh.
Really what was talked about was environmental farming.
Oh yeah.
No, not experimental. I mean, experimental. Experimental farming. He needs new glasses. I need new glasses. You just gotta go get that chart and unlock. Just want to put it closer. I can read. Yeah, you'll probably see it better now. Experimental farming, there's an example of greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And there we have the where the vegetables and you can grow your fruits. And there's the chicken egg farm. It can be done. And there's bigger stores, butcher shop, sustainable fisheries. And what else was discussed was teaching home cooked meals, like healthy home cooked meals being taught, and educating the youth to eat healthy foods, non-timber forest products, harvest seed program for non-timber forest products, and bring back the Eeyou preservation. And poultry farm, and waterfowl egg harvest. Some of the points that were made. You want to talk too much there, there's time is running out.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. It sounds like a beautiful future with lots of vibrant places to get food and lots of fun, good programs and a vibrant food economy supporting the people in Eeyou Istchee. That's the image that it summoned up for me when you were talking.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks so much. All right, who else would like to share about the vision that you developed, that you talked about, just some of those elements, the same things as we just heard? Who'd like to go next?
Yeah,
Hi, yeah. Go ahead, Ms. Dissany, go ahead.
We can't bring our camera much closer, but our image is in the group chat and Agnes will.
That's good. We can hear you really well, so that's fine.
TM.
Teacher.
Working on our project. Yeah, do it more than the group chat.
Okay. What we wrote is that we said to go back to our way of living and learn. Will we read everything? Or
just like
summarize?
Yeah, summarize.
To go back to our pre-culture and to pass on the knowledge to our children and grandchildren, and to live off the land where there's a teacher. And for the future, we said more like the food is too expensive, to have less expensive food, and to create a community greenhouse. And what else can I say? The passing of knowledge, the father, let's say for the picture, we have a picture here. We drew a picture of a father holding his son's hand, and they're fit, they're not obese. So if we go back to our way of living, the way we used to eat, like, then I think everybody would be fit. And if we do more exercise by walking, my teacher is very busy. If we walk, like when we less driving, but more walking and portaging and canoeing, and the woman to do the same thing to help out in the camps, for like preparing food and game, from work with their elders, and to eat traditional food. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
But in the future, to have we want to have more like programs at the school, or virtual teaching, like tanning, moose hide, goose, and hopefully have a college and learn about the Native studies.
Nice.
That's I'm gonna be a teacher.
Fantastic. And I think Chantal was sharing the beautiful picture, the mural that you did on the wall there. So that's fantastic. So I hope, just a reminder to all the facilitators, please, please, please capture everything with your phone. Just take pictures of everything that you produced today, even if it's just a page full of Post-its, because that's really valuable to all of us to be able to see firsthand the conversations that you had today. Okay, I'd love to hear from Waskaganish. You guys have a beautiful full table over there. Who's going to tell us about your conversation and your vision for the future?
Hello?
Hello, you're going to have to speak up. We can't hear you too well. Oh, I don't think that mic's working so well.
One switch.
No. If you know what I might suggest is if you just pull the cord out from the computer, try it one more time. And if not, yeah, there you go. If you just pull the cord out from the mic from the computer, then you'll use the computer mic. That might just be a bit better. All right, we'll just turn up our volume so we can hear you properly. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, we can. Great.
These are some of the things that we talked about. A lot of it was already covered by other communities. But some of the things that we talked about was community gardening, like greenhouses, and also basically teaching our students, our young people, about family meal preparations, healthy food restaurants and stores, because we feel that there's just too much junk food in the stores. So we need more healthy options for people to purchase fruit and vegetables. So the other thing too that we talked about was a local bakery.
Oh, yeah.
Provide school cafeteria, serving nutritional foods to our students. So basically starting right from the home to the school and to the community. Somebody mentioned one size puts in only. Small portions. What else did we? So that's pretty much it. We were talking about community cookbook on healthy foods. How to prepare your let's say asparagus. What is it that you're going to eat with that? How to cook it and so on, how to prepare it. So that's what we were talking about.
Amazing. It sounds like a beautiful future you've painted there. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Okay, we have time for one or two more report backs. Who'd like to be amongst the final? And just a quick comment to all communities. If you can just let us know in the chat how many people were in the room with you today, and include yourself as a facilitator if you like. And Rodney, I just sent you a little message. If you're still there, just have a look at that. Okay, who'd like to? Let me remove the pin here.
Eastmain will go next.
Okay, great. Let me just.
I don't know. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. My name is Benny. I'm one of the facilitators, and also multi-pass.
Awesome.
Okay. For our dreams and hopes, we dream to have a healthy lifestyle, fresh produce, youth leadership, not to be in the same condition that we are today, more engagement, greenhouses, farming, school involvement, more teaching of traditional food, new stores, bigger stores, being out on the land, butcher shop. What else is there? Oh, that's still part of the butcher shop. But, yeah. That's how far we got on that.
Amazing. Another beautiful future being painted in East Maine. Thank you so much for sharing.
Hey! Multi-pass.
All right, go Habs, go. All right, let's do one more. Who wants to do one last report back? And then we'll do some closing remarks and finish up for the day.
Hey, hello. Just to be here.
Great. Hi there, and she's asked to be. Go ahead.
Lily is taking off our chart. No, I don't want to. Can you hear us well?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Just a minute. Just today's spiel. So we had this. Most of it was focused on traditional food and having a food market with a blueberry farm, veggie farm, fish market, and a traditional food butcher shop where you can take your harvest there and get all the meats prepared for you. Workshops in handling traditional food so we can teach the youth. And traditional food recycling. If you don't use it, you give it to someone that needs it. And healthy food cooking classes. And for the stores to showcase healthy food and to hide the junk. We also want healthy taste testing booths in all the stores to encourage people to buy healthy food. And our last one was less canned food, because when our hunters go hunting, they tend to buy canned food, which is high in sodium. And back in the day, they used to prepare dried food, like dried meat. That's what they used to carry with them when they go hunting, and we want to bring that back. That's all.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Beautiful. All these pieces together, you can see how it starts to, there's a lot of overlap, but there's also some complementarity in all the different ways that you've talked about the future, this beautiful dreams and future for that you're aspiring to together. So that's really fantastic. So I'll just finish up by saying we will be meeting back here again tomorrow to focus in on traditional food. So we're going to be going a little deeper than just our hopes and aspirations and get into some real analysis of what's going on with the traditional food system. If you know anyone who should be part of these conversations, please bring them to your community conversations. I know there's, there's always more people who could be part of these conversations. So if you know someone that really should be at the event tomorrow, I believe most communities, you'll be in the same places as you are today, starting at 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So that's all I have to say for now. For folks who facilitate, we're going to do just a quick check-in at the end tomorrow morning at 9:30. If you can't make it tomorrow at 9:30, please stay on the line just for a few moments. I'd just love to hear how it went for you and just troubleshoot anything so we can smooth things out to make them even better for tomorrow. If you have any, I would love to hear from folks who are on Zoom right now, or even in any of the communities. If you have any last remarks that you'd like to share, how things went, what you liked a little less about today, things that you might suggest we improve for next time, I would love to hear your comments in the chat. Well, I'm going to hand it over to Rodney now to finish off the day properly. Over to you, Rodney.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. So again, I think one of the things we wanted to do was, just for we'll do the closing prayer tomorrow at the end of the day. But anyway, I was in with the Mississippi group there for a while, so it was a lot of fun to participate. Anyway, I think I want to sort of just leave you with this note. The chronic diseases, I wouldn't do I think we did a visioning exercise at one point in Miyūmīchisutāu, and I think one of the elders said, our goal is to have a good, meaningful, quality, healthy life. I wouldn't know what takes. We can just but how can I get stuck that? So I want to leave you with that thought, and it's very inspiring to see what DA Mohio again. Thank you so much. See you guys tomorrow. That's it from me.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Rodney, can you stick around for just a couple minutes? I'm sure you want to get going, but I just love to hear how it
I'm
went.
good.
I'm
Hey,
so
Amanda, it's
curious.
Morgan. Just really quickly.